The American Revolution wasn't just a war. It was the result of years of rising tensions between Britain and its American colonies. In this 3-part series, we're going to break it all down. How it started, how it was fought, and how the United States was born. Welcome to Part 1, The Road to Rebellion. Let's rewind to the 1760s when everything started to fall apart. After Britain won the French and Indian War, King George III issued the Proclamation of 1763, which banned colonists from settling west in the Appalachian Mountains. Sorry if I butchered that, I probably did. The goal? Keep peace with Native Americans. The reaction? Furious colonists who fought for that land and were now being told they couldn't use it. Wars are expensive, and Britain was in debt. Deep debt. Their solution? Tax the colonies. But here's the problem, colonists had no say in Parliament. This led to the infamous phrase, "No taxation without representation." First came the Sugar Act, taxing imported sugar and molasses. It hit merchants hard, but most colonists didn't feel the impact just yet. Then came the Stamp Act of 1765, which taxed newspapers, legal documents, even playing cards. This one sparked outrage. Colonial leaders formed the Stamp Act Congress, and protests broke out across the colonies. The resistance worked. Britain repealed the Stamp Act in 1766, but they weren't done yet. In 1767, Britain introduced the Townshends Acts, taxes on everyday goods like glass, paper, and tea. The colonies fought back with boycotts, refusing to buy British goods. Then in 1770, things got violent. A crowd confronted British soldiers in Boston, and shots were fired. 5 colonists were killed. Paul Revere's famous engraving turned it into propaganda, calling it the Boston Massacre. The anger was reaching a boiling point. Even after repealing some taxes, Britain kept the tax on tea to show they still had power. But the colonies weren't having it. On December 16th, 1773, a group called the Sons of Liberty boarded British ships and dumped 342 chests of tea into the Boston harbor. This act of defiance became legendary. Britain responded with the Intolerable Acts, punishing Massachusetts by closing Boston Harbor and taking away self-government, instead scaring the colonies. This united them further. In 1774, representatives from 12 colonies met in Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress. Their goal? Figure out how to resist British rule. They agreed to boycott British goods and prepare militias. The colonies weren't declaring independence just yet, but they were ready for a fight. April 19th, 1775. British troops march into Lexington and Concord to seize weapons and arrest rebel leaders. Colonial militias, known as Minutemen, stood ready. Then a gunshot rang out. No one knows who fired that first shot, but that single shot changed history forever. The British won the skirmish at Lexington, but at Concord, the colonists fought back hard. Forcing the Redcoats to retreat, the American Revolution had officially begun. Part 2, the fight for independence. Today we're covering the key battles, strategies, and turning points that shaped the war. Let's get into it. After the battles at Lexington and Concord, colonial militias surrounded the British in Boston, trapping them in the city. But let's be real, at this point, the colonies didn't have a real army. That was about to change, though. In June of 1775, the Second Continental Congress appointed this guy, George Washington, to lead the new Continental Army. But before Washington could take action, the British made a move of their own. British forces tried to break out of Boston by attacking the colonial positions on Bunker Hill, well, technically Breed's Hill, but whatever. The British charged 3 times, taking heavy casualties. The famous order was supposedly given, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." Eventually, the colonists ran out of ammo and had to retreat. Technically, it was a British victory, but at a huge cost. Over 1,000 redcoats were killed or wounded. The colonists realized something. They could stand up to the most powerful army in the world. This is where the fun begins. By 1776, the colonies weren't just fighting for fair treatment anymore. They wanted full independence. Enter Thomas Jefferson and the Continental Congress, who drafted the Declaration of Independence. On the 4th of July, 1776, the colonies officially broke away from Britain. Let's be clear, declaring independence was one thing. Winning it, that was a whole different challenge. Britain wasn't about to let the colonies go that easily. They sent a massive invasion force, over 30,000 troops, to New York City. Washington tried to defend New York, but the British crushed the Continental Army at the Battle of Long Island. Washington barely escaped with his army across the East River, saving the Revolution. Things were looking bad. The British had taken New York, and the Continental Army was on the run. With morale at an all-time low, Washington took a huge risk. On Christmas night, 1776, he led his army across the icy Delaware River in the middle of a snowstorm. The next morning, they surprised a camp of Hessian mercenaries in Trenton, winning a crucial victory. It wasn't a huge battle, but it proved the Continental Army could fight, and it gave colonies hope. Meanwhile, in the north, the British tried to cut the colonies in half by invading from Canada, but at Saratoga, I think. I make these scripts and I can't pronounce anything. American forces stopped them. This was huge. For the first time, the Americans had defeated a major British army. And guess who noticed? France! After Saratoga, France officially joined the war, giving the Americans money, supplies, and eventually troops in the Navy. This changed everything. Even with France on the board, the war wasn't over. Washington's army spent the winter of 1777 through 1778 at Valley Forge, facing starvation, disease, and freezing temperatures. But this is where they leveled up. A Prussian officer, Baron von Steuben, I probably butchered that, trained Washington's troops in European military tactics. By spring, the Continental Army was stronger than ever. By 1778, the war had shifted. The colonies weren't just surviving, they were fighting back. But the war wasn't over yet. Part 3, Victory in a New Nation. Let's pick up where we left off. The British are still in control of major cities, but the tides are about to turn. In 1778, Britain shifted its focus to the south, hoping to gain support from loyalists and slaves promised freedom. They captured Savannah, Georgia, and they took Charleston in 1780, one of the biggest American losses in the war. But the South wasn't going down quietly. Fighters like Francis Marion, aka the Swamp Fox, used guerrilla tactics to harass British forces, fast, sneaky, and savage. These hit-and-run attacks gave the Redcoats major problems. One of the biggest wins in the South came at the Battle of Cowpens. American General Daniel Morgan used a clever strategy: fake a retreat, then surround the British. It worked perfectly. Huge win. Huge morale boost. British General Cornwallis was now on the run, heading north to regroup right into the trap. Cornwallis set up camp in Yorktown, Virginia, thinking the British Navy had his back. Spoiler alert, they didn't. The French Navy showed up and blocked the British from escaping by sea. Meanwhile, Washington and French General Rochambeau marched over 400 miles to surround Yorktown by land. The Americans bombarded the British for weeks. Cornwallis held out as long as he could, but on October 19th, 1781, he surrendered. The war wasn't officially over yet, but this was checkmate. It took 2 more years of negotiating, but finally, in 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed. Britain officially recognized the United States as an independent nation. The U.S. gained territory from the Atlantic all the way to Mississippi River. Not bad for a bunch of farmers and rebels, right? With the war over, Washington did something legendary. He resigned as commander-in-chief. He didn't grab power or crown himself king. He just went home. The new nation had a lot to figure out. Government, money, unity. It wasn't easy, but it all started with a revolution fought not just with weapons, but with ideas. Liberty, representation, and the belief that people should rule themselves. And there you have it, folks. The American Revolution, from protests and tea parties to battlefield victories in a brand new country. Thanks for coming along this series with us here. If you enjoyed the series, drop a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more history made simple. This is your local history guy, and I'll see you next time.